Hello, dividend growth stock investors. It is Colby, the DGI Crab, and I got a great question from a viewer that I want to go into in further detail here in the form of a video. In case you aren't aware, one of my very favorite types of content to create is video responses to viewer questions. You can email those to me at dgicrab@yahoo.com. And sometimes I may just send you back an email. I'll always respond to you with an email. But if we have a question that requires a longer form discussion, with your permission, I will make a video response. And I'll keep you anonymous, of course. This one came through from Tony. And Tony asks me what I will do if I get close to the point of being able to retire off of dividends, but I just decide that I can't quite wait, and I'd rather just retire from the rat race, even though that bridge account or just non-retirement brokerage account doesn't quite have enough money in it in order for me to be able to retire off of dividends. And then he asked, would I start selling off positions and living off of that money, or perhaps would I start transferring some of the lower yielding, higher growing positions into higher yielding, slower growing positions? So let's just kind of talk through that a little bit. So just a little basic background on me. I'm not at the point just yet in my financial freedom journey where I can just retire off of dividends. Now, I think if I sold off everything that I had that was lower yielding and put it into higher yielding stuff, like let's say SPY or things like preferred shares, PFFA, high yield bonds, SPHY. A lot of that tier four higher yielding stuff for the immediate income seekers, I think I could probably get reasonably close at this point in time. But right now I'm 41 years old. So that means that I've still got another 18 plus years before I can access any of the money in my retirement accounts to live off of. And while I certainly like things like SPY and JEPQ and SPHY and all of that high yield monthly paying stuff for the immediate income seekers, I don't recommend anybody start adding that kind of stuff to their portfolio until they get into their mid 50s. This is an age-based investing channel where the older you are, the higher yielding stuff you want to add. The younger you are, the lower yielding but very high growth stuff is the best thing to focus on. And if I've got 18 plus years to live off of those accounts before I can start accessing my retirement accounts without penalty, then I'm going to need some stuff that's going to grow a little bit faster than your high yield monthly stuff. Because if I'm getting just kind of flat income and not any real major raises, 18 plus years is quite a while to wait, and I may not be able to keep up with inflation. Because once you're living off of those dividends, the only dividend raises that you're going to get are the dividend increases from the ETFs and the individual companies. But to take this question and kind of break it down into a real life example, let's take this example portfolio here. This is a portfolio that ought to be fairly similar to my own here within the next few years. Now, I still have a mortgage, and I don't envision myself retiring at all until that mortgage is paid off. My personal goal is to have the mortgage paid off by age 45. I should be on track to do that, barring any major setbacks. So, obviously, life could throw you a lot of different curveballs. They could bring up unexpected expenses. I am hoping that I can get that taken care of by age 45. Now, at that point in time, let's say that I've got a portfolio that looks kind of like this. I'm somewhere between 45 and 50, and my mentality at this point is I need to get out of the rat race and not work a full-time job anymore. And if I have that house paid off, I would estimate that I'm probably still going to need at minimum $2,000 a month to cover expenses, because you're still going to have home insurance, still got to have some form of health insurance, auto insurance, got to pay for transportation and food and utilities and all of that kind of stuff. And while not having a mortgage is certainly a major line item to not have in there, I think 2,000 is certainly what I would want to have coming in every month to live reasonably well. But I really would probably prefer to have more like 2,500 to 3,000 coming in to really feel like I could have some wiggle room in case there were some unexpected expenses that came up. Now, in this example portfolio, I've got it sorted here by the overall value of the positions, and I would envision that my portfolio would maybe look something like this, where I've got a lot of money in my ETFs, VIG, VYM, VOO, SCHD, VBR, VYMI, as the top 6 positions. And then I would have a collection of individual high quality single stocks, McDonald's, Visa, Microsoft, Air Products and Chemicals, etc. And let's say that this portfolio's, in the $700,000 to $750,000 range, and collectively at this point in time, it's generating me about $16,300 worth of dividend income. Obviously, that is not anywhere close to the $2,000 to $3,000 per month that I would like to see coming in on average to cover my expenses. I would need to get this particular number here up to at least, at minimum, $24,000, but preferably comfortably above 30, somewhere between $30,000 and $40,000. So, as I said at the beginning, I could just start selling off all of these individual positions and start loading the boat on things like JEPQ, SPY, etc., to give me a lot higher immediate yield and monthly income. And that may not be a bad play, because I could, there's none of those positions are in this particular portfolio right now. So I could potentially sell off, a couple $100,000 worth of the individual companies and acquire those higher yielding positions. And that would bump me up into the mid 30s at that point when it came to annual dividend income. I'd lose some money selling off the positions, but then I would gain a bunch of income adding the much higher yielding stuff. But then again, I'm still not going to get maybe as much dividend increase year over year as I would like to get. So at this point in time with this portfolio, what I would probably more than likely do is I would start looking at the individual company positions. So I'm going to keep my ETFs here, and I'm going to start looking at the individual company positions. And just like I do when I'm acquiring the stocks to build that passive income right now, I'm going to be using my method where I compare the 4-year average yield to the current day yield and see if I have any lower yielding positions that appear to be overvalued. So if you take a position like Microsoft, for example, Microsoft is sort of chronically overvalued. It's just such a great company, great stock, but not a super high yielding company. In this scenario, I've got about $23,000 worth of shares of Microsoft, and I'm getting just shy of $200 a year in dividend income off of that. So if I'm sitting here at age 45, 46, and I'm not going to be adding more to my portfolio and I'm just going to try to live off of it, I might take a position like Microsoft here and just start selling it off. Now, I could do that in one fell swoop and just take the $23,000, move it into cash, and live off of that position for a while. And if I think that I need, let's say on average, $2,500 a month, that's going to get me about 9 months worth of expenses. In the meantime, I'd have dividend reinvestment just turned on with all of these positions across the board. So that way, while I'm living off of these Microsoft proceeds, I'm still getting dividend increases through that drip, through the dividend reinvestment. So after about 9 months or so, I wouldn't have any more Microsoft, and I wouldn't have that 199.20 in the portfolio anymore. So this would go down to more like 16.1. But however, over the course of those 9 months, I should realistically have reinvested through dividend reinvestment somewhere between $8,000 to $12,000 in positions that are mostly yielding higher than Microsoft. So overall, my dividend income after that first 9 months should actually be higher because I've got the drip working, and hopefully I've gotten some dividend increases from some of these other individual positions along the way. So then at that point in time, now I would have one fewer position. I don't have that. I don't have that Microsoft sitting there anymore. And so then I might look at something else. Maybe at that point in time, I start trimming off the Visa position, another very low yielding position. As of today, that one looks like it could be not necessarily way overpriced, but certainly on the high end of things. It's not one that I'd be actively adding anything to right now. And kind of similarly, sitting there with about $27,000, give or take, of Visa. And that could pretty easily buy me another 9 or 10 months worth of living expenses. And again, while I'm doing that, while I lose out on that $156 of dividend income by selling off this position, I still have dividend reinvestment turned on for everything else over that course of time. So at this point, I think that I've probably bought myself about 18 months or so worth of expenses that I'm living reasonably well off of. And my overall dividend income after about a year and a half or so, even though I've sold off those two lower yielding positions, again, because of dividend reinvestment and hopeful dividend increases with the other ones, I've probably gotten up to the point at that point in time where I've got 17,500, give or take, of dividend income coming in off the portfolio. So even though I'm selling off these positions, I'm still getting dividend increases, and I've gotten a year and a half closer at that point in time to retirement. And then I would probably just continue to look across the board at some of the lower yielding positions and see if there were any that looked like they were just trading way too high individually, and just continue to kind of trim those back, keeping the higher yielding stuff reinvesting. And then I would think that by the time I got well up into my 50s, even though I'm selling off some lower yielding stuff, my overall dividend income should continue to go up. Now, I might also look at some of the smaller positions, like even though Coca-Cola is one that I wouldn't say is a low yield position. At any given point in time, if Coca-Cola looks like it's way overpriced, I could just look at that and say, you know what, it's only $4,600. That's going to buy me a couple of months. Maybe I just sell that one off and continue to protect the rest of my portfolio, and let it continue to grow through dividend reinvestment. That might also be something that I look to do, where I could just simplify the portfolio and by selling off some smaller positions that aren't a major point or a major source of overall dividend income. And there could come a point in time doing this, however, when I get up, because I think this is going to pretty comfortably get me past age 50. But if I start getting up at age 52, 53, 54, and I'm just not bringing in anything income-wise at all through side hustles, part-time work that I'm just enjoying, or anything along those lines, and it's just all coming from this portfolio, I could conceivably get down to the point where I've got maybe just 15 overall positions, including these 6 ETFs. And I might start looking at that and saying, this might be the point in time to now start adding the JEPQs and the SPY eyes, so I can juice the overall income up to the point where I really don't have to sell off any individual positions anymore. And I may not need those aggressive dividend increases at that point in time. Because once I hit 59 and a half, I'll be able to access my 401k without penalty. And personally, the holdings that I have in my 401k are mutual funds that, quite frankly, I'm just less excited about than these positions in my brokerage account. And at that point in time, I should be able to pretty easily just leave whatever's left in here alone and just live off of that 401k for quite a while. Now, personally, I want to get this dividend income up to the point where it's closer to $30,000 with these quality positions before I even start thinking about retirement. But it's a great question, viewer, and that would probably be how I would handle it.